Have you ever wanted to fly around the world? I've gotten close. I've done about a 12,000 nautical mile trip that included an airline trip the other way around the world. But I've never flown completely around the world. But I envy people that do. And I've got a guy here that wants to do it and has done a lot of international flying otherwise. But his goal is to fly around the world in his own personal airplane. I think that's cool as could possibly be. Lei Gao here's with me. I appreciate you joining the Malibu Guru Podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's to me, I'm a little. We just got through doing a podcast that talked about I had a medical event. I had a heart attack, which is strange. And if you want to go hear what that is, the deal is that you were scheduled to fly with me today. It's Thursday, and on the Sunday prior, I had a heart attack. So 5 days ago, I had a heart attack, and so and I've lost my medical. Everything kind of changed in my life. And so today you got to fly with Deanna instead of me. So I'm sorry that we didn't get to fly with each other. I was looking forward to that.
Oh, that's okay. I know what happened. You saw me on the schedule and I scared you off.
I had a heart attack. Oh my gosh. No, that's not it at all. I'm done. I was really looking forward to flying with you. And what I will tell you what I did. I've lost my medical, but what that means for me is I can't act as PIC on an airplane. What it does mean is I can flight instruct. So I could have flown with you today, but I promised myself I was going to take 3 weeks and do nothing related to flying. And honestly, this is just a self-prescribed, if that's the right way to do it, self-prescribed time off, and just to make sure my body's doing okay.
That's just good logic right there.
So I'm going to fly the microphone today and not the airplane. So
perfect.
Anyway, you got to fly with Deanna, and I hear that went great.
Yeah, I had a really great experience. Deanna is very knowledgeable when it comes to, everything aviation. So I absolutely enjoyed our session.
You bet. Well, I've been really excited about getting to talk with you just for a bunch of reasons, because we've talked enough that there's some aspects of your life that I just think are cool as could possibly be. We're going to talk about air cams. We're going to talk about flights over to Europe, over to Egypt. We're going to talk about Meridian flying, and then we're going to talk about a trip around the world.
Yeah.
And let's start where it all started for you, which is China.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many people? I mean, I guess there are a lot of people that come out of China that were born. You were born and raised in China through your 18th birthday.
I was, yeah.
And then came to America. I want to talk about that. What was it like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I grew up in a version of China that's very different from the China today. It was very open, and I just happened to be fortunate enough to have the parents that are very open-minded. They wanted me to see the world. So starting from a very young age, they kind of instilled that curiosity in me to see the world. So they sent me to Europe and America when I was a teenager, and by doing some comparisons, I decided that U.S. is where I want to be for college.
Sure.
So during high school, I applied for a couple of colleges in the U.S. and ended up getting into Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. Majored in accounting and finance, and worked in financial services in Manhattan afterwards.
In Manhattan,
yeah.
All right. So you were at the epicenter of financial happenings going on in America, and I would say probably the world.
Yeah, I'd say so. It was a very fast-paced environment. I absolutely enjoyed it. The only downside is I'm not a number cruncher by design, so I ended up deciding to take a whole different direction.
Completely. And there's the whole direction into aviation?
No, I actually became a police officer in my 20s for a couple of years in Denver, Colorado. I was a full-time officer for about 2.5 years, and then a part-time officer for another 2.5 years. So I was working nights constantly, so didn't get a whole lot of flying done in those 5 years, unfortunately.
Okay, so hold on. We've gone too far. I want to go back to China.
Yeah.
When you were in China, I've often said this, that one of the things I'm very happy for in America is that a young person, a male, female, black, white, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, any young person today, let's just take any teenager, can look to the sky, see an airplane, and say, I want to be a pilot. I want to be the person that flies that airplane.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems with the rest of the world, meaning if you're and I used to say this, if you're a person in India or Africa or China,
Mm-hmm.
that you might not have that opportunity.
I absolutely agree. I think in some of these countries, take China, for example, there's GA just doesn't exist. You only have military and commercial aviation.
Right.
And, the way people become pilots is also not as straightforward as it is here in the States.
You can't be anybody and become a pilot if you live in China. If you want to become a pilot in China, you either have to come from a special family.
Yeah, with connections.
With the
most
connections,
likely. Yeah.
and maybe with the grades, maybe with intellect that they've diagnosed from early, that you're going to be on a path that's going to lead you to be a pilot.
Right.
Because you're not selected by merit only. You're selected by birth and by status.
And that is hugely problematic. I think especially when it comes to aviation safety, right? You have pilots that have pathways that are not based on merit. I think that creates a whole bunch of problems down the road.
And the other part of this is, if you look at any other part of the world outside the United States, and maybe some other really high level countries like I don't know, England and Germany, where aviation exists, but a lot of times in America we say the highest echelon of society would be maybe a doctor or a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
In the rest of the world, the highest echelon is a pilot, meaning a pilot carries a tremendous amount of weight, credibility, deep respect for a pilot. So somebody that may not have the aptitude or even the desire to spend their time in an airplane may pursue that course of action because they're maybe pursuing a deeply respected community or a deeply respected path, and they end up becoming a pilot, and they don't really want to be a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pursue it. It's problematic, isn't it?
For sure.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
But here's my big thing is I always, one of the things I'm excited about is that in America, if you're a teenager, you can look to the sky, see an airplane, and say, I want to be a pilot. And that opportunity exists today. It may not be the easiest for everybody. Yes, I understand that some people may have a challenge to pursue that desire to fly. But generally speaking, anybody in America has that opportunity. If they play their cards right, put themselves in the right position, there are people and organizations and resources that will help a person become a pilot in the United States, because general aviation is alive and well and doing great in America.
Absolutely.
And I think that's cool. And as you came to America, you probably in China didn't see aviation every day, but at some point you looked at aviation and said, I want to be a pilot. When was that?
Yeah, so that goes back to 2015, about 10 years ago. So I had about a 6-month in-between jobs. I left financial services in Manhattan, and then my police academy date didn't happen until roughly middle of the summer. So I had about a 6-month in-between jobs, and so decided to pick up flight training in middle of nowhere, Somerset, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah. So got my ticket, and then like I said, I was a police officer working nights, so didn't get a whole lot of flying done for about 5 years after that. And
then you shifted careers. Did you change careers again?
I did, yeah. So I got into hospitality business in Colorado mountains.
Okay.
My wife and I, we own the BV hostels. So our model has been identifying underperforming bed and breakfast, and then turn that into a European-style trendy hostel for the budget-minded travelers.
Okay, so for the person that's listened to this that doesn't know what a hostel is versus a hotel or something, what's a hostel? Why is this such a desirable thing?
Yeah, so our model is a hybrid between a hostel and a hotel. So basically, half of our rooms are your traditional kings and queens, and then the other half are shared rooms. So we have a room with 4 bunk beds or 6 bunk beds or 9 bunk beds.
So you might be sleeping in a room with other people you don't know, maybe not, but you get to sleep there, and that's a good place to stay. And the reason why is the price is right.
Correct.
And
yes.
And I say older people don't love it, and younger people do.
Yeah, it really depends on the season. We really get a wide spectrum of travelers. Especially with the locations of our hostels being in Breckenridge and Telluride in Colorado.
So you're catering to the skiing snow community.
Correct. In the wintertime and in the summertime, we get a lot of hikers and fishermen and
sure.
People
who love the outdoors. That's
yeah,
right.
Absolutely. So oftentimes, these travelers they want to be staying at somewhere with good quality, good service, but that's not going to break the bank.
Right.
That's where we come in.
Yeah, and it's just a wonderful business model because I'm telling you, you get next to some of these ski areas, and the prices just go through the roof.
Absolutely,
becomes prohibitive for some people to be able to go skiing or be able to do whatever to participate. But if they have honestly, if you go to the ski resorts, you want to be at the ski resort all day long. You just want a place to sleep for the most part.
Yep.
And you're providing that.
Exactly. We're providing a crash pad for people that want to spend majority of the time, outdoors.
Yeah. Do you have a website? How can people connect with you for that?
We do. Yeah. It's thebivvy.com.
The Bivvy?
Yep. It's BIVVI.
BIVVI.
Yep.
Okay. Thebivvy.com.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Now, when did the Meridian come to life? Like, there's a place in here because you own a Meridian. It's a nice Meridian. I saw it. It's pretty cool. When did you say, hey, okay, I need to find a Meridian?
Yeah. So let's go back a little. In summer of 2020, we acquired a second hostel in Telluride. So the drive back and forth between Breckenridge and Telluride is a 10-hour round trip through the mountains. So that's when we decided to buy our first plane, which is a turbocharged Bonanza.
Okay.
And we absolutely loved it. Flew that far, just under 400 hours. And then we were inspired by fellow aviators that flew around the world in a small single-engine piston.
Yeah. So
we contemplated, flying the Bonanza around the world, but it's got an engine that's 500 hours past TBO. It's a well-running engine, but I think due to our risk profile, we just don't want to be taking that across, very cold waters.
Yeah.
So we decided to step up to Meridian, which is where this Meridian came in. We acquired the Meridian in January of 22. And then my wife and I were getting married in May of 22 in Croatia. So I threw this wild idea to her, and being still unmarried and unexperienced, right? I'm just throwing ideas on the wall and see what sticks. And then it just so happened that she's also into making the transatlantic trip to our wedding in Croatia.
So y'all, both of you flew with your wife all the way across the North Atlantic through Europe over to Croatia.
Yeah.
Dubrovnik, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
And got married there. And then the rest of your family and whoever else you wanted, friends and family, flew via airline.
Yeah, we had about 85 guests coming in, and everybody had a blast.
I think that's the coolest thing ever. Okay, I just think it's awesome. I've flown the North Atlantic a lot. It's a lovely trip. You did it in, what was it, May?
I think we took off in end of April.
End of April. Okay, so the North Atlantic's beginning to warm, beginning to thaw. Mm-hmm. It's probably a pretty decent time to go. If you got to pick your time, probably not November to March because it's just very cold, very tough.
Right.
What was it like to fly your first North Atlantic trip?
It was great. I have to say, I got a lot of pointers from the PA-46 community on the crossing. So we're very thankful for that because, I have never flown not even to Canada or Mexico, let alone the transatlantic trip. So getting some hand holding was definitely helpful. And the trip itself, I mean, we could not ask for better weather. I think that there was a lot of planning that came into, the preparations for the trip and getting a good understanding of the weather for the legs between Canada and Scotland is very important. I remember, about 2 weeks leading up to the first crossing from Goose Bay, Canada to Narsarsuaq in southern part of Greenland. I was calling the Greenland weather people almost on a daily basis just to get an understanding of how weather is going to act during that time of the year. Because the approaches going into Narsarsuaq can be very unforgiving.
Very.
The NDB minimum is at about 2,000 feet AGL. So if I even have the slightest hint that the weather is going to be subpar, I'm going to hold off.
Yeah, good choice. And you said you had good weather. Was there any challenges going across the North Atlantic?
I have to say, for the most part, it was pretty smooth. We were very methodical when it comes to weight and balance.
Yes.
And flying to the wedding, there's just a lot of things you're taking, right? I have a little portable scale, and so I was weighing everything that my wife, puts into the PA-46. So I want to make sure that one, we're legal, and two, we have a decent amount of safety margin flying across, especially with all the heavy safety equipment. There were some very lengthy discussions on what to take and what not to take.
Yeah, well, you don't have much margin in a Meridian. I mean,
No.
if you're taking that trip, from Goose Bay to Narsarsuaq, that's a long way.
Yeah.
And you want to have all the fuel you can possibly have on that trip, but you
Absolutely.
don't want to be over gross. And it's very challenging.
Yeah.
Because you must pack appropriately. There's no doubt. And you want to have the right survival equipment. Because
Absolutely.
you never know. So there's some airplanes, a King Air, when we fly a King Air across, we don't even do a weight and balance because the airplane's empty except for your equipment and what you got. It's so easy. It's pathetic. But when you go on a Meridian, now you're going to be on the very edge of things.
Absolutely.
Talk about the reliability of the Meridian.
Yeah, no hiccups whatsoever. At least not for the first trip to Europe. On the second trip, we had
Hold on, we're not on the second trip yet. We're going to get there.
Yeah. It was a really smooth all the way to Dubrovnik. As a matter of fact, when we were approaching Dubrovnik, I asked ATC, I said, my wife and I were getting married in this castle right next to the old town Dubrovnik in 2 days. Can we do a circle? And they were very accommodating.
Did you get like a selfie where you're flying the airplane and the castle's in the background?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My wife did an awesome job, videotaping the whole thing, and it just so happened that because of the proximity to the war in Ukraine, there was a lot of NATO activities happening in that part of the world. So we couldn't descend below 1,500 feet because of, I guess, the NATO helicopters. And we saw them, it was a pack of 3 Chinooks.
Okay.
So we're very, very, we're very grateful for having the military there to kind of provide a safety blanket.
Sure, absolutely, 100% agree. Okay, got married. I assume it went well.
It went well. Yeah,
she said yes.
She said yes.
She walked out. Now, when you left, did you fly back from there, or where'd you go from there?
No, so it's always been our dream to go on the honeymoon in the Middle East, and we always wanted to visit Israel, and by that time, in the Middle East, it was relatively calm, so we decided to make a go for it. Originally, we were planning a flight into Tel Aviv, but then I think our handling company quoted us some $8,000 per landing in Tel Aviv.
Wow.
And then supposedly we also had to find a local company to sponsor our presence in Tel Aviv. So we decided to go the cheaper route of flying into Cairo, Egypt, and then take a commercial to Tel Aviv.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Did it work out well?
It worked out perfectly. You know, we took a fuel stop in Crete.
Yeah.
Heraklion.
Heraklion, yeah. Been there many times.
It's a beautiful little
Lovely.
spot.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
So landed there, got fuel, stayed the night, got some really good food, and then met some amazing people. And then the next day we went on to cross the Mediterranean into Egypt.
Yep.
It was very reassuring to see the African shore coming into view after hours of over water flight.
I tell you, the view of Egypt from above as you approach it, there is something just comforting about. Hey, there's land. There's land. Just in case something happens, there's land.
Yeah.
And the other one I remember is if you fly high altitude over Egypt, you could see the Nile. It's like a sea of brown with a green river going through it, a river of green.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just it really is a beautiful country from the air, and amazing how brown and how desolate the desert is. In other words, when you leave the Nile and all that the Nile represents in Egypt, you very quickly move away into just very, very, very abandoned, very desolate area and into the desert. And I've always found that to be just intriguing.
Yeah. Yeah, we did have a little hiccup. So as we were coming for ILS approach into Cairo, Egypt, there were some faster commercial aircraft coming into our vicinity. So we were vectored off the approach very briefly. So we were able to actually fly over the pyramids, which is just amazing to see.
They vectored you over the pyramids?
It was perfect. I couldn't ask for a better vector off the approach. But then it just so happened that we lost all GPS signal over the pyramids. So, at first I thought, okay, the rumors were true. The pharaohs cannot be very happy with modern machinery flying overhead, right? Flying over their tombs. But then after landing, I was chatting with some of the Egyptian captains, and they were telling me that GPS jamming is very prevalent.
Wow, it can certainly happen. That's for sure, and it can happen in certain parts of the United States. It happens in other parts of the world, no doubt about it. But you got a view over the pyramids. I mean, that's got to be fantastic.
It was perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so landed in Egypt, went to Israel, came back to Egypt, got in your airplane, and then came back to the United States.
Correct.
Okay. Now, obviously, a lot happened during that time, but I know there's another trip coming, so hang on. So you get back to the United States, and eventually you think to yourself, I want to do it again, but I want to go to Europe. How much later was this?
It was exactly 1 year later. So it was the summer of 23 is when we embarked on this second transatlantic trip.
Okay.
Because we had so much fun in the first time around.
Was it as fun the second time around?
Absolutely, it was.
Okay.
Yeah. So very similar routing all the way to Reykjavik.
Yeah.
And then we had a hiccup because my first step out of the plane broke the cable that was holding the door.
Yeah.
So I knew something was going to happen because that morning before we took off from Goose Bay, right? I was debating if I should have 2 donuts or 5 donuts, and I elected to have 5 donuts. So the extra 3 donuts that I ate along the trip really was the
it broke the cable.
Yeah, it was.
Don't blame it on your wife. That would be bad.
Correct, and it had nothing to do with her because she stepped off first, and it was perfectly fine, right?
Of course.
And we had a line of Icelandic customs people and border people, and border trainees that are just watching what was happening, right? So my wife stepped off. It was perfect. And then when it was my turn, I broke the cable.
All right. I've had the cable break on me before, and you recognize it real quick because you get a big twang, and you know something happened. But and you probably didn't get it fixed the rest of the trip, did you?
I actually did.
Okay.
So it didn't, damage the structural integrity of the door, and there was no leakage for the pressurization as well. So we felt safe to continue the journey.
Yeah.
So we did end up buying a little stool to climb into the cabin without putting any weight on the door for
perfect plan.
the next 2 legs. We did reach out to Piper Deutschland in Kassel, Germany. And it just so happened that they do have one in stock for the door cable.
They knew how to do it, and they repaired it.
They knew how to do it. They are very, knowledgeable. So we decided to make a, on-schedule stop in Kassel, Germany. So we flew from Reykjavik to Prestwick in Scotland, and from Prestwick directly to Kassel, Germany. Got that fixed within a couple of hours, and then we continued on to Malmo, Sweden.
Okay, so you ended up going to Sweden, Estonia, I think you said. And
we flew over Estonia. So after Sweden, we flew into Finland, and then from Finland over Estonia, Latvia, and we landed in Vilnius in Lithuania.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like just an absolutely wonderful and lovely trip.
It's such a beautiful part of the world. We can't say enough good things about the Baltic states. They're really beautiful.
Talk to the pilot, the owner of a turbine airplane, that's thinking, I want to go over to Europe. Do you think it's safe? Obviously, you do because you did it. Do you think you overstretched the safety by not going with somebody that knows what they're doing? Or do you, in other words, having done it now twice, would you recommend this course of action for somebody else?
I think there's definitely a lot of homework that needs to be done because you are flying over a very unforgiving environment over the North Atlantic. So I think getting together with someone who's done it before, who knows the ins and outs of making the crossing, is definitely crucial.
Okay.
But when it comes to the turbine reliability, it's a no-brainer. I think if you love travel, if you love the adventure part of aviation, absolutely, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, you would do it. You would do it again without even a question.
Absolutely.
And you did it in your Meridian. Would you do it in your Meridian today? Like, in other words, is your confidence in the Meridian this high?
Yes, absolutely.
That's the message that I wanted to come out, because I mean I do it all the time. If I'm flying a Meridian, sitting behind a PT6 engine, take me anywhere in the world, I'll be just fine. Anywhere in the world, I will take a PT6 and be able to do it. It now comes down to, do I have the experience and the knowledge to be able to do so, to know I say it this way: an airplane has no knowledge of where it's flying in the world. All it knows is it's pushing air down to keep and to stay up in the air. And the airplane doesn't care whether it's over the North Pole or the South Pole or Europe or America. It doesn't matter. It really comes down to the local laws and the local how you do things, the way you do business, the administration, as far as customs and overflight permits and all these kind of different things. You got to go figure all that out. And then the last part would just be the safety factor. In other words, when you go over the North Atlantic, you have got a lot of things that, if it all goes perfectly, then it's great. And if any of it goes bad, it goes horrifically bad very, very quickly. And I think if you're prepared for all that, you mitigate that risk. Like I would say, from about April till September, okay, that's the time to go across the North Atlantic, because there's daylight and there's not as much icing everywhere. It's just but if you wanted to go from October through about March, I would say that you need to take somebody, and you need to go. You need to take extra precautions by going with somebody that knows what they're doing, because the weather can just be so brutal in that part of the world. So you picked to go in late April, May, and it worked out for you. I bet the glaciers were calving, and that there was a lot of stuff a lot of ice floating in the water, and
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there were just millions of icebergs. I mean, some of them are as big as skyscrapers. Yeah, it was just amazing to see them, breaking off of the glacier and kind of flowing in the fjords as you are coming in for landing at Nassau.
It was lovely. Okay, trip back.
Yeah.
No troubles?
No troubles. On the way back, we flew through Poland. We flew through the Suwałki corridor in between Lithuania and Poland. I think at one point we were roughly 50 miles from the Ukrainian border. And then,
is this during the war? This has to be during the war, yeah.
Correct.
Because the war's been going on for 3 or 4 years.
At that point, it was about a year and a half into the war. And we hear a lot of, NATO Air Force activity over the frequency, which made us feel, safe. And I'm just happy that we didn't have to pull out the missile avoidance page in the POH.
Yes,
I told my wife that, if we see any flares, if we see any smokes, my wife is going to be shooting the marine flares off the side to distract the missiles.
I hate to tell you, it won't work. Yeah, it won't work.
I'm glad that we didn't find out.
Exactly. Yeah, no, the Meridian would be a sitting duck for anything that's going to shoot it out of the sky, just as any other civilian airplane would. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about, because you got 2 other airplanes that besides the Meridian.
I do.
What are they?
It's a Carbon Cub EX2, and it's a lot of fun to fly.
Okay, and one other one called the Air Cam.
The Air Cam, yes.
Okay. Why the Carbon Cub?
I was living in the mountains when I bought the Carbon Cub in Colorado mountains, and there are just a lot of really beautiful off-airport land that you can land on using the Carbon Cub. It's a great backcountry machine. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then after having the baby about a year and 2 months ago, I just don't do that kind of a flying anymore. So I decided to acquire this Air Cam, which is a twin engine pusher that's also a tail dragger.
Okay.
So having a second engine, having the redundancy makes flying a little safer, keeps my wife happy.
Yeah. It's a cool airplane. I'll tell you, I've got a lot of time in a Challenger 2. Matter of fact, I own a Challenger 2 right now that I'm building, and but it's got the same configuration, or it's near it. It's got a pusher prop behind the wing, and then you sit in the front in tandem. And the visibility is just spectacular.
Really is.
It's just absolutely. So I've never flown an Air Cam, but if I come to your place in Colorado one day, we're gonna go flying in the Air Cam.
Oh, absolutely. I first came across Air Cam when I was doing my multi-engine commercial seat rating in Sebring, Florida. They have an Air Cam on floats, and the power to weight ratio is so high that supposedly it can take off on one engine out of the water.
Wow.
On floats.
Okay.
I'd love to find that out at some point.
It'd be amazing if it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, I would love to fly that airplane. I think it's just one of those cool airplanes that designed for an intended purpose. For taking pictures back before drones and things of that nature.
Yes.
But what a lovely airplane! Just a great way to build multi-engine time, and just be a fun airplane to fly. That's all.
Really is.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. Okay, now you have a dream, if I understand correctly.
I do, yeah.
Tell me about your dream.
To fly around the world with my wife and
the wife's
baby.
On board.
Wife's on board.
She's good with it. And will you take your daughter or son?
Daughter.
Will you take your daughter with you on this trip?
Absolutely. Kind of depending on what kind of a plane we're going to be using, right? If we use the Meridian, we love the turbine reliability.
Absolutely.
But would I take my 1 year, 2-month-old baby across the North Atlantic, maybe not. I think the chances are my wife and I were going to be flying that leg and then have maybe a grandparent take the baby on a commercial flight to meet us once we safely crosses over.
Okay. And a Meridian, now I can tell you right now, because I've flown Meridians all over the world, but I've never flown a Meridian over the Pacific. And the Pacific is an unusual place. You have to have a 2,000 nautical mile range to go from Honolulu to San Francisco. And to go from Honolulu westbound, you've got to have another couple thousand. So, it's really hard to get across the Pacific. And to go across the North Pacific, you're probably going to have to stop off in Russia. I've had the trouble of, as a matter of fact, I picked up 3 airplanes in either Japan or over in the Indonesia area, where it would clearly be the best way to go is to go up to Japan, the Kamchatka Peninsula, into Nome, Alaska, over into Canada, back to the United States. But that route is not available for an airplane that can't go about 1,600 miles because you can't go to Russia today because the war is going on. You're just not going to go there. And so it presents a challenge. So and I know you're in the throes of considering all this, but it's probably not going to be the Meridian. It's going to be something else. And but you're seriously pursuing this to the place that this is something you want to do.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been our dream for quite a few years, and we are seriously pursuing this path.
And your wife is on board. She thinks, and she to you, seeing the world is worth it.
Absolutely, yeah. She's 100%, behind this idea, and it didn't take much convincing because we're going to be landing in some of the most beautiful places on Earth.
Even if it's not the most beautiful places on Earth, it might be the most unusual, or it might just be the most mundane, but still seeing it. To me, we live in a time of, if you look at human existence, we live in a time where I think we're right in the dawn of a new age. The new age is going to be space. We're going to have people that go live on the moon. We're going to have people that live on Mars. I think possibly in my lifetime, if I live to be a ripe old age, we may even have people living somewhere beyond Mars. We're moving so rapidly now with our space. But today that is not available. You can't go live on somewhere other than Earth.
I thought the Meridian doesn't have a service ceiling. I thought it would just keep on climbing.
No, it does. I hate to say it. It does. It's not RVSM. But to me, one of the most exciting times of human existence is the ability to travel our Earth. And if you look at we literally live in almost the singular time. Now, but the last 30, 40, 50 years, you can own your own airplane that has enough reliability with a PT6 turbine engine. You've got that reliability, and to be able to go around the world. If you did it in a piston airplane, it'd be very, very difficult. You could do it, but it would be very tough because you're going to have to reposition 100 low lead somewhere. It's going to be a disaster of logistics.
Yeah.
But a turbine engine. Now you're burning jet fuel. Jet fuel's available worldwide, and you can literally go around the world. The furthest I have ever been was when I picked up an airplane in Tahiti and then flew the Pacific Islands up to Japan, and then Russia, Nome, Alaska, Canada, and back in. It was 11,800 miles. Deanna just flew a flight in a Phenom 300. We have a couple episodes ago of the podcast where she flew from the United States across the North Atlantic, across Europe, across the Middle East, down through Indonesia, and into the other side of Australia. I think she was at 12 or 13 or 14,000 miles. We're talking about an enormous way around the world. And then flew home via airline. But to fly around the world, to literally be able to plan that route, to go all the way around the world in your own airplane where you fly it yourself, you get to go see what you want to do, when you want to do it, and you make the plans. I just think you're onto something. I think that's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I hope we'll help you do it. Meaning that we'll not only cheerlead, We'll provide support in terms of guidance and wisdom. I just think what you're doing is cool. I think as humans, we are designed. We have I don't know if it's a God-given thing or if it's just a thing inside of our psyche that wants to explore, that wants to go. I love the fact that we've got our space program that is now launching a rocket almost every day, exploring this wonderful universe that we live in. But right now, people like you and me, we can't go explore the universe. We don't have that kind of money or influence or power or ability. But we do have the ability to go see everything that this earth has to give. And we can even do it flying it ourselves. And I just think that's one of the coolest things ever. So my hat's off to you. If you do this, when you do this, will you come back and tell us all about it on the Malibu Guru podcast?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're going to need a lot of hand-holding along the way, especially from someone like you who's done it many times.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah. We appreciate all the help we can get in advance.
Yeah. When we'll help. Travis Holland and his team at Shepherd Arrow will help. There's other people that are helping. It's going to take a tribe. It's not, you don't do this on your own. This is a tribe passion. This is something that you're going to need help doing. But you're clearly a guy that's willing to look at an objective, look at a goal, look at a task, break it down, figure out how you can do it, get the data, get the information, mitigate the risk, and make something like this happen. So my hat's off to you. Lei Gao with a Meridian, a hopeful trip around the world, a couple North Atlantic crossings under his belt, and just a general cool guy who lives in the Colorado area and has a whole bunch of hostels.
Yep.
I just think that's cool as could be. Welcome, and I appreciate you being a part of the Malibu Guru podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, if you like to hear stories about people that are just cool and use their airplanes for the neatest stuff, this is the place to be. I appreciate Lee being here and talking to us about his very interesting life and the travels that he has. And we look forward to seeing you again on the Malibu Guru podcast or the Casey Aviation YouTube channel.